I'm Cheryl Gordon. I'm here at Big Red Markets in beautiful Thorold, Ontario to talk to you about how beef and bacon can be part of your healthy eating plan for 2019. You may be surprised to hear a yoga therapist and a quasi-vegetarian talk about beef and bacon, but these high-fat items can be part of healthy eating if you enjoy them in moderation. So let's head into Big Red Markets and do a little exploring for our recipe. So here we are inside, and what we need in winter is a really hearty soup. So today we're going to make real bone broth. Using boxed or canned or cubed bouillon can bring a lot of mystery ingredients that, well, frankly, could interfere with your digestive system or your hormone balance. So we're going to go back to basics today. It's really very easy and simple. Big Red butchers their own meat in-house, so their beef bones are plentiful and of great quality. So I'm going to get some beef bones today to make our broth. I'm going to get some extra and make a bigger pot of broth than I really need for my soup, because frozen broth can be used in mashed potatoes, pastas, stir fries, all kinds of other dishes as well. So I'm going to have extra on hand. John, the owner here at Big Red, tells me people come from all over to get it as house-smoked bacon, and you can see why. Look at the meat on every slice. We're just going to be using about 6 slices of this bacon, more as a garnish on our soup, but it'll pack a big punch of flavor. Big Red has a thriving wholesale produce division, and the benefit of that for you is all this gorgeous fresh produce that's really turned over quickly. Today in our soup we'll be using kale. It's one of those superfoods we know we So Big Red is bottling their own condiments and sauces now, and I'm actually kind of excited about them. They're made with simple ingredients, and so that makes clean eating so much easier. Some national brands can have a lot of things in them that you don't want in your diet. Today in our recipe, we'll be using this lovely garlic-infused olive oil. It's extra virgin. You want to look for extra virgin olive oil. It means it's the first cold press off the olives. No chemicals used in the extraction of this oil. We'll also be using their gorgeous red wine vinegar. The red wine vinegar will add a nice depth to the broth. And what I'm really excited about is the spicy bomb sauce. We'll add a tablespoon or so when we're frying the aromatics for the soup. It'll add a great umami flavor to the soup broth. So here we are, we're getting ready to make our beautiful hearty soup. This is going to be a beef barley soup with vegetables and a bacon garnish. The first step was to roast We have finished roasting the beef bones and we're getting ready to actually make the bone broth. So I'm going to take the bones right off the foil. Look at that beautiful marrow in that bone there. That's going to give us the lovely calcium and protein that bone broth is famous for. So the bones go right into the soup pot. I'm going to just put that bacon aside for the bacon. Get the vegetables in there as well. Just get your hands right in sometimes. I do better with hands and tongs. Added to that pot, I'm going to put in some fresh thyme. I don't have to cut it or anything because this will be discarded later. It's really just for flavor. I want to get some nice seasoning in there. So I'm going to use about half a teaspoon or a teaspoon of salt. It's maybe a little too much. You can always adjust that later. And I'll use a couple fresh grinds of pepper. Now here comes one of our secret ingredients that we picked up at Big Red yesterday, the red wine vinegar. I'm going to add a couple tablespoons of the red wine vinegar. This extracts the calcium from the bones and also adds a nice depth to the broth. Because we roasted the bones and the vegetables, they'll impart a nice browning to the broth. I'll cover all of the vegetables and meat bones with water, bring it to a boil, and then let it simmer on a low heat for about an hour. Okay, so we've made the broth and we're getting ready to actually make our beef bone broth soup. So I've started out with some of this lovely garlic infused olive oil that we picked up at Big Red, and I'm going to add a little bit to my pan. not a whole lot necessary. And then I've added in some aromatics. I've chopped some onions fairly fine, some celery, some carrots, and I'm letting that have a little bit of a saute. While we have that over kind of medium-low heat, I want to develop some caramelization, some coloring to the vegetables. We'll let that do its thing. Let's talk about our bone broth. So this is what it looks like after you've boiled and strained the bone broth. And I use canning jars or mason jars to store it. You can freeze it at this point, and then you can use it for other types of recipes later. Now you see that our bone broth was really rich. There's a whole thick layer of fat on the top. I know a lot of old school cooks that say that the real flavor of soup comes from that fat. So if you're on the keto diet or the paleo diet, you don't have to worry about it because fat is okay. Some other of us have some more concerns about the fat. So now that it's solidified, it's very easy to scoop out and eliminate most of that fat. You don't have to, but if you want to kind of cut the calories of the bone broth, that will all melt back in and emulsify as it heats. While we're waiting for our vegetables to keep cooking and doing their thing, let's talk about the kale that we picked up yesterday. So kale is one of those vegetables we know we want to eat more of, but sometimes we're just not sure how to incorporate it into recipes. How much kale salad can one person eat? So we're going to use the kale in our soup today. I've taken the stems, and a lot of people discard. Okay, so we've got our vegetables, they've sauteed beautifully, and I can smell all that lovely chili, tomato kind of flavor coming through. Now we'll add the broth. So carefully pour the broth into the soup pot, and then to the broth we'll add our chopped kale. You can use other green vegetables. You just want to think about something that's going to be able to stand up to cooking for a while. Spinach is not a good choice. It gets a little bit slimy. But some other green vegetables like green beans or peas might work well here as well. Now to add a little bit of heartiness to this soup, because I really want to make it sustaining here in this cold winter that we're having, I'm adding some pot barley. Pot barley is something you can buy in the bulk food section of your grocery store. I prefer pot barley over pearled barley. They are different. The pearled barley has been agitated and polished, so some of the healthy fiber from the outer grains has been lost. So I've stirred the barley in, the beef broth in, the kale in. Now I just have to check the seasoning on this soup. The broth was already seasoned, as you saw when we made it, but I just want to check and see if maybe I could add a little bit more seasoning at this point. It's pretty good. Ooh, you really get a hint of that chili, I'll tell you. I put such a little bit in, but you will really be able to feel that on your tongue when you start to enjoy this soup. So there we go. Our soup is seasoned to taste for now. We may want to do something a little bit later. I'm just going to let that simmer for about another 10 minutes for the flavors to really develop. And then we can enjoy some beautiful beef barley soup with a bacon garnish. So here we are. I think our soup is all done. It certainly smells like it's done. It's been bubbling on the stove over a medium-low heat for about 15-20 minutes. And it looks as though the vegetables are beautiful and tender, so let's dish some of this up. I'm going to take a big scoop so I get the pot barley and the vegetables and the lovely broth. I've taken a little bit of the meat from the bones that I got at Big Red, and that cooked in the oven, and also when we were making the broth. So I've taken some of the meat